and I am your host, Sharon Rolph, coming to you on the Transformation Talk Radio. And they are. I am here to help you live wholeheartedly, to enjoy everything and live boldly, and live without regrets. And this is one of my favorite topic. Art blocks that I've made. Your vocation is the place where your deep gladness and the world's deep hunger meet. Now, that's not exactly directly what we're going to talk about, but it leads into that over the course of our life. So my guest today is Martin Ruin, and we're going to talk about his book, the Project Heaven on Earth. He is a dynamic speaker, consultant, and co-author of the New York Times best-selling Chicken Soup for the Corporate Soul, or for the soul of work, actually. So he's found a way to bring business and spirit together in the workplace. And he's also addressed corporate leadership and ethics forums on the Harvard Business School, and returned for 4 consecutive years. So they like him there. Martin's newest book, Project Heaven on Earth, 3 simple questions that will help you change the world, easily provides a simple blueprint for you to discover what heaven on earth is for you, and what simple, easy, concrete steps you can take in the next 24 hours to begin making heaven on earth real. And I think it will tune in and dovetail with what you're here to do. So I've always enjoyed inspiring people, and I think Martin's going to do a grand job of that today. Welcome, Martin.
Thank you, Sharon. It's a pleasure to be with you and your audience.
So what are we going to talk about today, and how is it relevant and important?
What I'd like to talk about today is heaven on earth and people's deep longing for the kind of life and relationship and nation and world that they want, and how now is the time when that's beginning to emerge very powerfully in our society globally. We don't see that yet on the surface, and I'll talk about that, but I want to talk about a bunch of different initiatives that are going on around the world now to make this longing for heaven on earth real now.
Yeah. So you've been kind of working on this a little bit for, is it 10 or 20 years? What was your earliest experience, and how does that play into life today?
Well, you spoke earlier about spirituality and work, and I've been doing a lot of work on spirituality and work. And I was going to do a keynote address, actually here where I am in Santa Fe, New Mexico at the moment. And just before I went on, I was kind of just sitting, meditating, and I thought, if every business in the world is spiritual, is that what you want? And I said, no, because if we could transform business, because business is the temporal power in the world today, then we could transform the world. And then this thought popped into my mind, oh, you mean heaven on earth? And Sharon, I can remember sitting there going, what? You can't say that. You cannot say heaven on earth. And then I started to think about it, and I thought, well, why not? Why can't we talk about heaven on earth? Why can't we talk about the kind of life and nation and work that we really deeply long for, as opposed to talking about all the hells on earth, which is permissible conversation, right? Right, that's permissible conversation. The coronavirus now, the refugees, climate change, economic uncertainty, on and on and on. Those are permissible topics of conversation, but not heaven on earth. And so I began this inquiry into, well, what is heaven on earth, and how do we get at it? So that's how I got it. But I think, another thing that might be interesting to you is just a little bit more about my background.
Okay.
So I'm a corporate consultant. I've worked with large clients. Well, as you said, I've spoken at the Harvard Business School 4 times on vision. I've had large clients like Virgin Records, Sony Pictures, Southern California Edison, very blue chip traditional corporations in which I worked with vision on them. I've done a lot of work on dialogue between contentious parties. So I have this, fairly normal corporate life. And then this insight came into me, heaven on earth. And I'd been working with individuals, with managers and companies, and with divisions and companies, and with companies about what their vision is. And so I thought, but there's something deeper here. There's this longing for a world that we want that really works, not for all this nonsense that's going on, all this BS that keeps going on. Can we do something about that? And that just intrigued me, because as a corporate consultant, one of the things I get paid for, the thing I get paid for, is producing results. And so when I looked in the world, the kinds of results that I saw, I didn't like a lot of them. Certainly, there are huge amounts of results in the world that are wonderful, but there are a lot of results showing up that I personally and a lot of other people didn't like. And so I began to apply kind of my corporate background and my spiritual background into this notion of, well, what do you want? I mean, imagine you have a magic wand and you could have heaven on earth. What is that for you? So let me just stop there and see if you have any other questions before I go into what I mean by heaven on earth.
I don't at this point. I think so. You often ask, and I thought, if in case he asked me this, I need to have my answer ready. What was happening at a time when I experienced heaven on earth? And
Look, can I just hold on that for 1 second?
okay.
Mm-hmm. Let me do a little setup, because I do want you to answer those questions. So I didn't know what heaven on earth was. And I certainly wasn't going to impose it on people. I wasn't going to come to people and say, look, this is heaven on earth. I know what it is. You don't know what it is. And I'm going to shove this answer down your throat. That's clearly not going to work. But what if I came to you and said, look, what if I could evoke the heaven on earth that already exists within you? The heaven on earth by your definition, not mine, because your definition is much more powerful and relevant to you and intimate with you. And so I kept going around to people saying, well, what's heaven on earth for you? What's heaven on earth for you? What's heaven on earth? And I didn't have an answer. I mean, I wasn't coming at it with any preconceived notion. It was really, in the most purest sense of the word.
And they're the expert. Yeah.
Yeah, and you're the expert. So out of that, I developed these 3 questions. And so with your permission, I'd like to ask you, and I'd like to ask the listeners and viewers, to answer the questions as well. Can we do that?
Sure.
Okay,
sure.
So the first question, which you referred to, recall a time when you experienced heaven on earth. What was going on?
Well, I think the time that touched me the deepest, and it was, I guess I was probably 35, 40 years old, and I had just given my number 10 speech in Toastmasters. That is a 10-minute speech where you come from your expertise or whatever inspires you. So I had spoken about like a book. I held up a book, and this book was a interior designer. And when I said interior, I actually pointed to myself. I didn't plan on doing that, but 2 people in the audience picked up on interior designer. Well, that's kind of where joy comes from. And it's like I surprised myself. But then at the end, when especially one person came up to me and got my connection with interior, but she decorates houses, really. But to do a good job, she finds what makes you tick too. So the fact that I had this aha moment and somebody recognized my aha moment was just priceless.
I was right there. What astounds me every time people answer this question is it comes so alive for them, and so alive for me, the listener. It's like, yes, I could see, and I love the flip on the notion of interior designer. I've never ever thought of that. It's brilliant. I think we're going to go to a break now, right? In a couple seconds. So let's hold off for this question 2 and 3.
We've got about a minute left. So, how does it play into your life today? Is that a short answer or something we can answer quickly?
What the same question for me? What's heaven on
What,
earth for me?
well, how does, what this book is doing for you, how does it play into your life? It's probably changed the trajectory of your life, hasn't it?
Very, very, very much. It's just this deep heart longing, soul longing that's come into existence in front of me. And it just gives me a lot of joy. My wife says, I don't know how you keep going on this. And I said, because it's fresh and new. And
Yeah.
every person I meet, I've never heard interior designer before. That's brand new. No, I thought what you were going to ask me was, recall a time when I experienced heaven on earth. And it was this morning. We had some fresh raspberries. And when I grew up in Canada, we had raspberries for 2 weeks a year. So I have this real thing about raspberries. And now you can get them all year long, which is to me astounding. And so I don't like, I'll share anything with you, but I'm reluctant to share
Sure.
raspberries.
All right. When we come back, we're going to
We'll go to
hear
question 2 and 3.
Yeah. All right. So stay tuned. Thank you for coming back and listening to Fresh Courage on Transformation Talk Radio. And I'm your host, Sharon Rolph, and I have a guest today, Martin Root, that wrote the book Project Heaven on Earth. So we're talking about heaven on earth. And we were getting ready to share his second question. So what is that, Martin?
Well, the first question, just a reminder for people who are just tuning in now, was recall a time when you experienced heaven on earth. What was going on? Once you've answered that, the second question is, imagine you have a magic wand, like this pen, and with it, you can have heaven on earth. What's heaven on earth for you?
So my answer to that is everybody would be living from their purpose. And I think it would change the world. So when you're living from the DNA that you were born with, it's a beautiful world.
Very clear. And then the third question, Sharon, what simple, easy, concrete step will you take in the next 24 hours to have more of that in the world?
I'm doing it right now. I hope is inspiring people with possibilities and purpose in their life to have energy. My business name is Effortless Vitality, and that's from that. When it's flowing from your heart, it's easy.
Very good. So let's go through the questions because I'll talk about more depth. So question 1 was, recall a time when you experienced heaven on earth. Mm-hmm. What you did, Sharon, was you answered my question, the interior design incident. What you did not do, and what nobody does, is say, what do you mean by heaven on earth? Nobody asked that question. How do you know what I'm talking about? I didn't define it. I didn't say what it was or what it wasn't. Mm-hmm. So the only way that you can answer that question is by having inside of you what I call the already knowing about what heaven on earth is. Mm. And so when I ask you, recall a time when you experienced heaven on earth, the interior design at Toastmaster instantly comes to mind. And that happens with virtually everybody. Oh, the time when I gave birth, when I was, walking in nature with my husband, wife, child, having a wonderful meal. The content is different, but people know what it is. And that from the beginning has astounded me. We know. Second question, here's a magic wand, and with it you can have heaven on earth. Why the magic wand? Because with a magic wand, you don't have to know how you're going to do it. Because that's the magic wand's job. Oh, well, if I don't have to know how, I'll tell you exactly what I want. Mm-hmm. And in your case, it was everybody living with a full knowledge of what their purpose is. And for you, that would instantly change the world. Now, it's not enough for me just to leave it at that level. I actually want you to engage with it. How?
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. By answering the third question, what simple, easy, concrete step will you take in the next 24 hours? So this show, if you say so, is part of your direct contribution to heaven on earth.
Mhm.
And so by answering those three questions and getting people really simply to see that they already know, because they've had an experience, they know what it is, and then they can get acting on it now, today, simply. What we're doing, this is the larger scope here, is co-creating the new story of what it means to be a human and
Mhm.
what it means to be humanity. That's really what this purpose is. 5 or 10 years ago, if I spoke to you, I would say, Sharon, the current story of the world is not working. We need a new story. It's not working. It's not working. But I never defined that story. And so that conversation went away. But now what I'm saying is, and what many people are saying is, okay, it's time. We need to co-create heaven on earth.
Mhm.
It's impossible. We've never done it before. We don't know how to do it. I'm a man. I'm a woman, blah, blah, blah. I'm black. I'm what? Yes, all of those are rationales which you can use if you like. Or you can say, you know what? I'm in. Why? Because I say so.
Because I have a magic wand
You do.
and I can do something about it. So let's see. You've worked with many people on this over the years. Have you noticed any patterns that engage from your results?
Yeah,
Their
that's
results.
that's a very profound question. What's happened is as more and more people come up with their own heaven on earth project, something very important has struck me. And so let me give you some examples, and then you'll see where I'm going here. So we start with a woman in Hawaii, Susan and Lima Fryer. I was doing a seminar out there, and she said, "Well, what can I do?" I said, "Well, what do you do?" "Well, I teach people how to grow microgreens. Little plants you can grow in 10 days, and you grind them up in
Wow.
protein shake."
Uh-huh.
So I said, "Okay, what's heaven on earth for you?" And her answer was so profound, in that she said, in essence, it's about recreating the Garden of Eden here. And then she
Wow.
took that definition, Sharon, and put it at the bottom of her email. And so now every email that goes out has that, along with the question, "This is heaven on earth for me. Here's a magic wand. What's heaven on earth for you?" So simple, so elegant. Police officer in Texas created a 16-page manual called Heaven on Earth for Law Enforcement. A real estate agent in Canada created a program called A Home for Everyone, because the suffering in the world that was really bothering her was homelessness. She's a real estate agent. When I asked her what she could do about it, "Oh, Martin, you don't understand. I'm a real estate agent. I work 87 hours a day. I'm in a relationship, blah, blah, blah." I said, "Fine, Brenda, what are you going to do?" She went back to her office, 10 agents, sat them down and said, "Okay, we are going to create a home for everyone." How easily, simply. I'm asking you to agree that when you sell a home or a building, that $100 automatically comes off your commission check. Everybody said, "Oh, that's easy. Yeah, we can do that." They've raised, last I spoke to her, $400,000. The project is called A Home for Everyone. Any individual or organization can submit a proposal every year. And then those 10 agents, plus one of their clients each, so 20 people, decide where the money goes.
Mhm.
And then we have a woman in Austria. I was doing a webinar as well. And I said, "Well, do you have a project?" And she said, "Well, yeah, Austria is a heaven on earth nation." And I said, "What, Elizabeth?" I was like, "What?" And I said, "Well, why do you say that?" And she said, "Well, Martin, because it's simple." And that's when the bell just went ding, because for all of these people, the project that they came up with, Sharon, was something that for them was simple. I had a man recently from Gabon, Africa, now lives in Montreal, Canada. His dream was to have Africa step out of its bad past and its all the stuff that's going on there, and create a new future, to really unleash the potential that is the continent.
Mhm.
He's come up with a Facebook group called, and people go look at this up, it's called Africa, a Heaven on Earth Continent. And I know, stunning. All of these people, why? Because it's simple. So that's one of the major things that I've learned. If I can evoke heaven on earth from you, which is simple with
Mhm,
the 3 questions,
mhm.
and then have you discover what that is for you. Simply, we're changing the story.
Exactly, exactly, yeah, and when it's coming from that deep, quiet place inside, it doesn't take a lot of, um, money or some help from other place. Our inner our engine keeps running on very little, fuel because it's that inborn kind of focus.
And it's that energy source that, that's unlimited.
Yeah,
When I see people who have created these projects and what they're doing and how easy it is for them and how turned on they get by it, it's
wow,
remarkable to me. Remarkable.
yeah. Well, I started a couple years ago, I guess, kind of like standing in imagining standing like I'm standing in heaven. And I love near death experiences, so read a lot of stories of people who talk profoundly of the white light and of things so bright and clear and crystal and beautiful. And just imagine that's permeating every cell of my being. And the more I thought about it, the more um, I was convinced that I can walk in that joy, that beauty in my spirit daily, no matter what's going on around me. So it's like my attitude for life is from that um, you know, joy 10 times that people have experienced in heaven before they come back to earth. So,
Let's talk about that. We're going to go to break, I think, aren't we? In a couple of
we got it, yeah, a couple minutes.
minutes are good. So I want to talk about the notion of heaven. Around the 1500s, heaven was thought of as arising from just above the ground, way, way up into the sky. Along comes Galileo with the telescope, looks up into the sky, and doesn't see the angels, doesn't see heaven. So, thus was born the notion of heaven being farther
Yeah,
or after death.
yeah,
Or,
yeah.
here's the real key, not here, not now.
Mhm.
And I'm saying, yes, there's heaven after death. I believe that, and we shall find out. But what about here? Where does it say that this can't be heaven? Where does it say that this can't be the Garden of Eden? Because I think when we got kicked out of the garden, our job is to make this into the garden as well. That's our job. And if you give people the opportunity, if you say, look, imagine you have a magic wand and you can have heaven on earth, they know what it is. And if that were, if you walked out of your front door now and there's a person there with a silver platter and your definition of heaven on earth was there for the taking, would you take it? Everybody says yes.
Yeah, profound,
So I
profound.
want to unleash, well, not I want to, we are unleashing that.
Yeah, yeah. All right, so we're talking about heaven on earth, and when we come back, we're going to well, Martin's already shared a little bit of how people are getting engaged with this project on earth. Let's hear some more stories and stay tuned. Okay, so there is a simple, easy way that we can all get engaged in heaven on earth. Martin, have you seen any patterns showing up in what you've been doing with this?
Well, let me just do a little quick plug for my book here. By the way, can you read the title of the book?
Yes.
What does it say?
Project Heaven on Earth.
Do you know that there's another title embedded in that? You can't see it. I'll tell you. I know most people can't. Project heaven on earth.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. Uh-huh.
So it's a noun and a verb. And so what happened, what the book is about is the 3 questions. It's on Amazon. The 3 questions. And then when you keep asking those questions over and over and over again, what you start to discover, Sharon, are what are called the gateways. And so the book begins with the 3 questions, talks about the new story of humanity, talks about then the gateways that come out. So let me just go through them one by one. And there are no particular order. So for some people, when you say, what is heaven on earth? And how do you create that? Their premise is the more heaven on earth inside of me, the more it will show up in the world.
Mm-hmm.
So that whole chapter is about how do you get more heaven on earth, your art, or how do you get rid of some of the garbage in the way? Go to therapy, go to seminars, walk in nature, do poetry. So that whole chapter is about the gateway of heaven on earth, the inner. The next is the gateway of relationship with myself, with another, with others, with the divine. So let's say you and I have a hell on earth relationship. I talk about, okay, what's it going to take to turn that relationship into a heaven on earth one?
Mm-hmm.
And that I'm responsible for doing that. Then another gateway is living your global values. My wife's global value is joy. She walks into a room, you are going to feel joy. You have no choice. I have another friend of mine, Tim Klaus. His is order. He loves going into offices and buildings that are, messy, and he'll just clean it up because that order is his contribution to heaven on earth. We know people, who are mine is harmony or love or deep values that people hold that they want to see spread in the world, present in the world. And then we go to what I call the outer gateways. So one of those gateways is ending a suffering. For some people, the way you create heaven on earth is by ending hunger, war, poverty, slavery. And there's usually one specific suffering that really you can see just deeply hurts them, like I was talking to you about the real estate agent in Halifax. Homelessness. It was like I punched her in the stomach. She went white at the mention of that, just of the word. It was so powerful for her. So ending a suffering. And then what about institutions? For some, the gateway is institutions. What if politics? What if government? What if healthcare? What if technology? What if their purpose was the direct creation of heaven on earth? What would they be doing and what would they not be doing? And then heaven on earth nations. For some, it's having my nation be a heaven on earth nation. So, for example, the woman I spoke to you about earlier, Elizabeth, in Austria. Austria is a heaven on earth nation. That was a declaration. So it begins by saying so. And this man, Charles, in Montreal, Africa, a heaven on earth continent. And then finally, the final gateway is this here now. That this here now, where we are, this is heaven on earth. But our belief that it's not keeps us from experiencing this heaven that is here now. So those are the gateways. And so the book is Project Heaven on Earth, both the noun and the verb. And it begins with the 3 questions, and then it goes into each of those gateways so that by the time you finish reading the book, you know what your simple, easy project is, and you're engaged in doing that.
Cool. So, do you have a couple more examples of people that have co-created heaven on earth?
Yes. I did one out west in Sacramento, and there was a therapist. And he said, I work with couples who are in real problems, whether through potential divorce or an affair, or heavy duty stuff. And he said, what I'm going to do is introduce these questions into my counseling with them, my therapy with them, and ask an additional question. Imagine you have a magic wand, and with it you can have heaven on earth for your relationship. What is that for you? And it's stunning what people come up with. We have a woman in Santa Fe, New Mexico, who asked the 3 questions of about 70 of her relatives about a month before Christmas. And then she took about 40 of them answered. And those 40 answers about what heaven on earth is for each of those became her Christmas letter that year. It was wasn't that sweet? I just love that. And then a final one, every summer, my wife and I spend time in Prince Edward Island, Canada, which is the smallest province in Canada. And it's the birthplace of Canada. So it has a very important role in the psyche of the country. And about 15 years ago, I was doing a seminar there, and this thought popped into my mind. Prince Edward Island is Canada's first heaven on earth province. And no, 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 no. And then I'm talking away, and then it popped again into my mind. I'm like, no, 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 no. And then finally, a third time it popped in. I said, okay. So I declared it. I said, Prince Edward Island is Canada's first heaven on earth province. And so now we have a group of people. Let me give you some of the things we're doing there. A cafe has a heaven on earth coffee blend.
Mm-hmm.
A tea merchant has blended from around the world a heaven on earth tea to put harmony amongst the teas of the world. Isn't that lovely? What's another thing? Oh, the Kiwanis Club, Kiwanis is a service club, have created the Heaven on Earth Leadership Award, open to any public or high school student in the province. They have to come up with their own Heaven on Earth project. They have to then do that project, and then they submit it for an award. And they are so turned on because Kiwanis wants to instill service, community service, as part of their mandate. And to have these kids come forward, it's remarkable to me. What else? Oh yeah, and then 2 years ago, if you go on my website, projectheavenonearth.com, well, same title as the book, projectheavenonearth.com, I interviewed all 4 of the political party leaders in the province, and each of them talked about the 3 questions that I asked you, plus having a magic wand, what's heaven on earth for Prince Edward Island? And we put that together in a video. And as far as I know, it's the first time that every political leader in a jurisdiction has talked about heaven on earth.
Wow.
So
Wow.
this is the point I'm making here, Sharon, is this is much more advanced than just a good idea. I mean, people are engaging globally on this.
And we're drawing from the good in our heart, in our spirit.
Beautifully said.
Yeah. So, what uh, would happen when we reach a critical mass of people playing their part and co-creating heaven on earth?
That's a brilliant question. I have, so one of the questions I've been looking at was, how do I even know this is working? In addition to the projects that are coming up, if you go to Google and put in the phrase, in quotes, it has to be in quotes, heaven on earth 2018, you'll get about roughly 6.1 million results, not all mine. If you do heaven on earth in quotes 2019, you get about 11.2 million. This morning I did it, we're up to 7.7 million already for 2020. So something massive is going on in the culture. The analogy I use is, think of the analogy or the metaphor of the ocean. You're standing on the edge of the ocean and the sea, there's a storm and it's all, and it's warm, and you dive in and you go underneath to that silence. So the surface of the planet now looks like a lot of turmoil. But what is arising, and one way I know is by the projects that are showing up, and another way that I know is by these numbers dramatically growing, there is
Yeah.
some cultural meme underneath, some new thought form called heaven on earth. People are more willing to engage in this. If I came to you 5 or 10 years ago, meh. But today, if I come to you, there's no resistance. It's remarkable.
Well, I think sometimes things have to get so bad that we decide to make a new choice regardless of the bad. And my I know somebody in Texas that would say, it's going to get really bad, and you think it's bad now, it's going to. And this was like 15 years ago, and yeah, we're getting there. We're ready for something new.
To break open.
Yeah,
Yeah, agreed.
yeah. So let's see. Um, Oh, I even asked my nephews, what was, can you recall a time that was heaven on earth? And just last week, one of them said, freedom. He had been in prison for a period, and he says, I remember standing outside the gate or just getting released. He says, I didn't have a car, I didn't have a job, all these what you don't have, but what he did have was the sense of happiness of having freedom. What a simple, profound. Well, if you can start from the happiness there, and build on keeping that going, I think that's going to be a good thing.
It's a beautiful way to put it. Beautiful way.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was really in touch with a deep value for him, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Very deep, yeah.
So let's see. I think we've got one more segment. We're going to tell you more about some of the freebies that Martin has on his website and see how we can engage you in creating your heaven on earth. Stay tuned. You're listening to Fresh Courage on Transformation Talk Radio, and I am Sharon Rolph with my guest today, Martin Root. And
Yep.
Root, and we're talking about creating heaven on earth, and that each of us could play a powerful part in walking out what it means to each of us individually. So, how can people find out more about what you're doing, Martin? You've got a couple freebies
I
and
got a couple of freebies. Yeah, if you go to my website, which is projectheavenonearth.com, you'll see you can sign up for a free 7-day course, which will also get you a free blog. And the purpose of the blog is that every week you get another perspective, another facet of the diamond that is heaven on earth. And it normalizes what heaven on earth is for you, because you keep seeing it over and over and over from all these different perspectives, all these different people doing stuff. So it makes it normal, which is what I want. So go to projectheavenonearth.com, sign up there. Also, I really want to encourage you to get my book, Project Heaven on Earth, on Amazon globally. And what's interesting about this too is I'm going to make a request. Rather than getting one book, I'm going to be a little outrageous and ask you to get 3 books. One for you, one for somebody in your life right now who you know, this book is perfect for them. You know who that person is. And one for somebody who's going to come into your life for whom this book will also be perfect. So I'm asking you to buy 3. And I've started a new program, Sharon, called The Case for Heaven on Earth. If you buy, when you buy a case of books, which is 20 or more, and send me a note, martin@projectheavenonearth.com, saying that you've done that, showing me the receipt, I will do a free 1-hour Heaven on Earth consult with you, or a free 1-hour webinar for you. And people are taking me up on that, and on both the consulting one-on-one or the webinar. So Project Heaven on Earth, online and on Amazon globally.
That's keeping you busy then, isn't it? In a good way.
And it's fun because I never know what people, I bought a case of your books, Martin, I'd like you to do this, or please come and talk to one guy in British Columbia. Please talk to my wife and I about, what our Heaven on Earth project is. And I love doing that because I can hear what you can't hear. And it's so obvious to me. And sometimes we spend less than an hour because people go, that's it. Thank you. I don't need anything else from you. And off they go. And the books, one woman handed them out for Christmas to all her relatives, at work, at a plumbing company, and the owner handed it out to all his employees. So I never know what they're going to do. Oh, another example. There's a dentist who I did a workshop in Toronto, and she said, I want to take Heaven on Earth into my dental practice. Okay, because I never associate dental offices with Heaven on Earth, but I've changed my mind. When you go into her office, Dr. Dana Colson in Toronto, and you lie flat and you look up on the ceiling, there's a little sign that says Heaven on Earth. Now, she does not say a word to you about that at all. If you bring it up, then she'll ask you the questions and talk to you about it. And I thought, I could never have thought of Heaven on Earth in a dental office. So what the book will do and what the course will do, it will have you discover what your project is. So tell us what your project is, and let's get going. Like the guy from, who he'd been bugged by Africa, and he was looking for a vehicle that would turn his continent on.
Mm-hmm.
And just one more example. All these examples are popping in my mind. There's a guy we have who's the executive director of a Children's Aid Society, who had done all his coursework for his PhD and quit 5 years ago because he didn't have there was nothing that he wanted to write about. He heard about heaven on earth, and he's now doing his PhD on heaven on earth. Is that amazing?
Wow, cool,
So you see
cool.
these examples, Sharon. I mean, I'm stunned by them. Think of it as like a computer program. When you get a new program, you boot it up, and what it says to you is, look, here are these new possibilities, these new opportunities that never existed for you before.
Mhm.
But we can't do anything unless you put your unique content in. So metaphorically, that's what Project Heaven on Earth is. It's a piece of metaphorical software that says, we can have heaven on earth now. Really? What's your contribution?
Well, and you have a place on your website for people to put in what their heaven on earth is, right?
Correct. And their own stories. Yes. I want to
Yeah.
hear from you. And because when you send me your examples, I talk about them to other people. People get inspired by, yeah, I could do this, I could do that.
Yeah. Okay, we're coming down close to the end. I want to tell people too that my website is effortlessvitality.org, and my little quilt blocks that I make, art blocks I call them, they're on the Quilted Petunia on Etsy, and I have a YouTube channel, Sharon Rolph. But and I do a blog, but I want to tell the audience too about on your is it Project Heaven on Earth that the Earthshot Prize is out there?
No, that's on the blog. Yes, if you look on the blog, 2 weeks ago, well, it depends when you hear this, but several weeks ago, yes, Prince Charles and no, Prince William and Duchess Catherine have announced a new Earthshot Prize to really have the world work through the environment. It's quite incredible. So
Yes.
that's on the website.
I want to make sure I said that
Yeah,
because
if
it
you look
was
at the previous
amazing.
blog, you'll see. Yep.
So let's see. Giveaways. You said the e-course
The free
and
7-day course, yep, which will take you deeper. And the book, I really suggest getting the book because it makes it, somebody once said to me, when you have a book in your hands, there's weight to it, there's physicality to it. So this idea of heaven on earth, which you may have been thinking about, now has heft and weight and mass and
well,
momentum.
and part of it is kind of a workbook too.
It is.
Yeah. So that makes it applicable to individuals. So
right. I really want you to engage with this. So there's quotes, there's examples, there's pages that you can fill in if you choose. So when you end the book, you'll know what your project is.
yeah, yeah. So that if we want a better world, we can have a better world when we're coming and making our own contribution to making this a better place. And we each and all have our own contribution to make. So I want to inspire you to participate in your own unique way. And I don't know if it's right to say, that our DNA is ours uniquely, and therefore what we contribute and what revs our motor is different than the person standing next to us, or on the bus next to us, whatever. So I want to really thank Martin for being on my show today. I hope we add to that momentum that's happening for you, and we're all going to be um, sounding the vocal horn for let's have heaven on earth. And what do you see as the long run? Say next year by this time, what do you see happening?
I see those Google numbers really expanding dramatically as we've seen already this year. We're not even the second month in the year, and we're already at 7.7 million, and last year was 11.2. I see people of influence. This week I'll be releasing a little blog that shows my book being presented to Sir Richard Branson of Virgin Records. So we're looking at people who have high influence, game changers, world changers, getting my book into their hands so they start speaking about it. And I'm looking forward to just new creative projects coming online that I don't even know about. And we just need people to go, oh, I get it. This is my contribution. So I think a dramatic 2020, the overall for 2020 is that Heaven on Earth goes publicly mainstream globally. That's
Yes.
the intention for this year.
Yes. I'm all for it. I'm on board.
I know you
So,
are. Thank you.
so I help people who are bored and disenchanted create their own superpower identity, that DNA, to find energy, focus, and fascination with life for the long haul. And I can help you with that. I'm getting ready to make a video on that. So thank you for being my guest today.
Thank
And
you.
I hope maybe we get to do this again soon. Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Martin.
Thanks, Sharon.